down here, which used to be Droser. And I said I'm getting rid of Droser and replacing it with new projects. And here it is. So exploiting Civ, this one I cannot do in the M1, and you won't be able to do it either, which is rude because it is an ARM app. And I'm running, of course, an ARM operating system, but it won't accept an Android ARM app on the M1 emulator. So I'll just talk to this. So you install this thing called Civ. This is what was used in the lecture. This is a password manager. And on the Intel processor, you can install the Genymotion ARM translation libraries, which is the opposite of Rosetta on the M1. It lets you run ARM on Intel, and that works. But there isn't a Rosetta to let me run ARM on ARM, which is what I would need for this. Anyway, after you put on the Genymotion ARM translation libraries on your emulator, then you can install an ARM app. And you may not need to do that for the Android Studio emulator. But then you can install this thing called Civ, and stick in a password to log in, and store a PIN to log in, and store a password inside the app, a email and password. And once you've done all that, you can then hack it and try a few attacks on it, and that's what this project does. So you go to the Android manifest file and read it to find the permission. And as you can see, I did get it working just fine without installing any extra libraries on the Android Studio app on an Intel machine. This is on my Intel Mac at home. It worked just fine there. So you can see the Android manifest and see the permissions here. And then you can view the activities and see the main login activity and the file select activity that's exported. And this one's also exported because it has an intent filter, and that means it's exported by default. Well, that's the main login activity. That's not too surprising. And you can now exploit an a published activity. There's another one called PWList, which is published, and you can just launch it from ADB shell, AM. And that will launch the list of passwords even though you didn't log in. So they exported an activity that should have been not exported and force you to log in to get there, and they didn't. Then there's a content provider, DB and file backup providers, and you can find the URIs. And here's JADX, which I wanted to, you can use JADX to view the Java source code. It decompiles the bytecode back to Java, which is nice. And you can now search through that and find content providers. And I think we talked about this before in the lecture and such. This is where you find the content providers, and you see there's one here called keys. So you can use the passwords to see information about the password, and you can view keys and see the PIN, the password and the PIN for the app. So, and then there's a SQL injection, which we also talked about in the lecture. So that's the 511. That's the old one that goes with your textbook, where you do these standard attacks. And they used to use Droser, but you don't need Droser to do any of these attacks I'm showing you. You can just do it with the built-in Android tools. But you can't do it on the M1. And so, as I tried to solve that, it occurred to me there are probably some other vulnerable apps to exploit, and I found one that works on the M1 that is very nice. It's a whole CTF called EVABS, Extremely Vulnerable Android Something or Other. So this is it, EVABS. And they've updated it to version 4. There's something called version 5, but you'd have to compile it, and I don't care. I'm just using version 4. Version 4 is fine. You just have an APK to download and install this thing. So let's put it on my device. I might already have it on this one, but I think not. Let's see if I have EVABS. I do. I already put it on here. All right. Well, I'm going to take it off because that might be a hacked version. So let's remove it. The way to remove it is in Settings. There's my settings. I'm going to put it on the desktop. Okay, Settings. There are probably other ways to remove it, but this is the way I like to remove things, because even if they didn't come from the store, it's easy enough to remove. Uninstall. Yes, uninstall the app. Okay, now I'm going to put on the new one. Let's get EVABS 4, and putting it in 128 is fine. And there it is, EVABS. Is it installing? Installing, okay. Just went so fast I didn't believe it. All right, good. And there it is, EVABS. All right, so if you launch this thing, it gives you some game about humanity being danger or something, and then it gives you a name. You give it a name. This down arrow will make this thing go away. That took me a little hunting. Then access. And looks like it crashed. Just launch it again. That's pretty common. All right, now I'm in, I can see the challenges. And by the way, in principle, you can enter flags in here and it doesn't work. It'll always tell you they're wrong, so don't waste your time on that. That's that update. But anyway, now you can do things. So this one here is debug me, which is incredibly simple. You just have to read the log. So the flag will appear in the log. So there's a log just running there. I'll just clear this because it's filtering. If I do ADB logcat here, there's the log of my phone. And if you do level 1, the flag is going to appear here. And should be staring me right in the face. It probably, I think it has evabs in it. So let's just grep for evabs. Oh, that's rude. Oh, I'd have to hit this button, log the key. There we go. And so it pops it up. So that's the first one of that. And there's more of these. I've written hints how to do these, and they've got hints in the lab, but they're all pretty obvious. Level 2 is file access. You cannot read the file. It's safely stored in the system, and there's a hint. Where do you find the assets of an app? So we just need to look in the assets folder. So for that, we need to unpack the app, and we should be getting some practice up at this. So here is the app. In fact, I already downloaded the app. And so if I do here, there's evabs. So I can just do APK tool to take apart the app. And it's also unpacking the resources and stuff, but I don't care because I'm not planning to modify the app and repack it right now, although I might later. And now I'm going to go into there where it's unpacked and look. And here's something called assets. And I think they said you'll find it in the assets. If you go here, it's safely stored in the system. Where do you store the assets? So they suggest you should look in the assets. So go into the assets. And there's something called secrets, a file called secrets, so that's pretty clearly where you're going to find it. All right, and so it goes. It's a little CTF, and there's a lot of them, and it lets you practice a lot of the skills in this class. So the first few are easy, like logging and just taking apart the app and looking at it, and there's more and more things to do here, and later on you're going to have to modify the app and repack it and re-sign it. And I've got some hints here to guide you, and there are online write-ups and such. The only thing I'll warn you is the last ones don't work. There's some here that get kind of interesting where you do Smalley injection and you look at the actual Android source code to find what to inject. And this one here, I just commented out one line, one if statement, so it no longer notices to complain. And there's many ways to do it. But above level 10 and above, you can't do it. Level 10 is networking and the server is down. So even when you get in the middle of the server is down, level 11 needs Frida. And I didn't know how to do it, but now I do. So I'll probably be adding that. And same thing with level 11 and level 12, I probably will have working by next week. But I did get my first thing working on Frida about 2 hours ago, and I'm going to show you that next. So let me stop this one.